Hello and welcome back. I'm Gabrielle, and I took a little break last week for a camping trip, so I'm happy to be back. And I'm going to be sharing with you guys some of my experiences in the ceremony that I did like a week and a half ago. It's interesting. This had been, wait, let me start over. From my experiences with ayahuasca, when it first came into my body, I had this call, this kind of driving call to her about every 2 months. And that was consistent for the first like almost year and a half. And then my last ceremony was back in May of this year. And so there was this period of not having the call, but also it not aligning, and for about 6 to 7 months. And I had gotten to the point where I wondered, will I feel the call? Will it still be my medicine? Will it still feel like home to me? And I didn't know. So eventually, yes, the call came, and I kind of had so many things that prepared me for, well, I see now in hindsight, all the things that were preparing me to go back to ceremony. And I just want to touch on them because a lot of the things that maybe look totally out of place, and it's your intuition pushing you in a certain direction or pulling you, to feel something, to do something, it is for a reason. So the things that were preparing me for this ceremony, which I now understand, are the Atlas adjustment was key for me. And I will get into why in a moment. But also all of my eating of kale and seaweed, that had been like for about the last month, like incessant. Like I'm talking like a huge bowl of kale every day. And that also was in preparation for this ceremony. So going in, I knew because, and if you've listened to obviously my last talkings about my experiences with ayahuasca, I have like played with the idea of, or how much medicine I need to take. I'm very sensitive. So I had been taking sometimes way more than I needed to. And I found that, or I got the download that it wasn't necessary. And by doing that, I was actually going into my parallel lives to do work on those lives that are the parts of me in those other dimensions of this reality they're not being called to the medicine. So if I go into those parallel timelines, I'm only like, it feels like I'm forcing something that they're not ready for. So it's almost like if you have a family member that's not on this path and you're trying to make them come on this path, it doesn't work. They only put up like a defense and they feel like you're crazy. So it feels like that. If I try to go deeper into the medicine and, have the purgings and do the healing, it's me forcing my parallel selves into this healing moment that I'm choosing in this reality when they haven't made that decision. They are not being called to ayahuasca. So I had made an agreement with my higher self that I would only take 1 cup, no matter if I journeyed or not. And I felt like very secure in that decision, and knowing that whatever is meant to be will be, because I have journeyed many times on that amount of medicine and been completely, talking with the cosmos and galactic beings and all of that. So the first night, I took 1 cup and with everybody else, and in most of my experiences, I don't journey for a long time. So the ceremony itself lasts like 4 to 5 hours. And I think I've probably touched on this, but I'm just going to reiterate it. The first hour of the Icaros is where my shaman is creating a safe space, calling in all of her Doctorcitos and all of the tribes that she's worked with, and really creating, it feels like a web of protection around the space in her house. So that's the first hour. Then after that, she goes into the work. Like, she really feels like she's drilling the Icaros home for you to find that vibration within your own vessel and work out vibrationally your frequencies that don't align to that medicine. So I typically don't journey during that portion either, because again, like I've told you guys, I am not working on this vessel's first 7 years of trauma. So as I think I've talked about before, most trauma is created in the first 7 years of life, but because I'm a walk-in, I can't go backwards to that point. So that's why I don't journey during the ceremony. So typically around like 3/4 of the way through the ceremony, I then feel it come on and will have whatever experience I'm meant to have. So on the first night, it was all of a sudden feeling into the vibration of the sounds and the music so intensely, like more intensely than I ever have experienced before. What happened is like these Icaros and these songs are ancient, and they come from, very, very indigenous roots. And what I mean by that is that I started to go to those roots of where they were created. And, at first it was a sound that brought me there. And then it was the songs themselves and the words. And like, they would range from being very serpent-like and sensual and like earthy to like really, I don't know how to describe it other than like more indigenous, tribal, but every single song carried a totally different vibration. And what happened is, because I was becoming those vibrations, my vessel itself was like moving to that tone, to that frequency. Like, it was literally playing me as a vessel. And what I discovered is that this is where the purging occurs. When these songs are being sung and these, these intentions are being set in this time-space reality that is so protected for you to go as deep as you can, if there is a vibration in a song or in an Icaro that your body can't resonate to, that's how purging happens. It's like it's snaking through your system to find that point of stagnant energy or blocked energy to release it. And that can come out as tears, yawning, crying, or purging. And so what I was doing is allowing those vibrations to move through my whole system so I could feel where they were hitting, but they weren't, making me purge. It was just more becoming the vibration. And so I was pretty deep because obviously, I'm sure I've talked about this before, but the whole point and how you get into a journey within ayahuasca is through the vibration of the music. And it is everything. The entire time that you're in a ceremony, my shaman is singing. Like, there is no dead space. It's constant. And it's like let's say every Icaros is like 5 minutes long. So she's singing like hundreds of songs in that 5-hour period. And I've gotten to the point where I know most of them. And we're not allowed to sing along. So I'm just like, even the parts that I'm not in the medicine yet and I'm sober, it's like a concert, and it's just like enjoying the concert. But actually being the concert and being the vibration was so intense. Like, if I have to rate it on a scale, which that would have been my number 17, my 17th ceremony, the intense just takeover of these sounds was I mean, I would say it was really up there with the most I've ever experienced, even though it wasn't me communing with anyone and I wasn't talking to anyone. I was just letting it kind of overtake the vessel. So I remember being just breathless because it felt like each Icaros was like running a marathon and going so deep in the jungle with it. Like it was like it took everything out of me. And by the end of it, I would be like panting as if I had just run the race of my life, like trying to catch my breath because it took so much for me to like ride that vibration. So anyways, I was deep in a different way than I normally have been. But when then ceremony came to a close, most people at that point, because it's 5 hours later from taking the medicine, are coming off, coming back to their bodies. And I'm the opposite usually. I then journey the rest of the night. So I knew mine had just kind of kicked on within maybe 45 minutes to an hour before we closed ceremony. So I knew it was going to be a busy night. And the first message that I got once the ceremony was closed and everybody's like tucked in their beds and ready to go to sleep for the night was, this is usually a time that I can talk. I talk to my higher self, my other 12th dimensional beings that I incorporate as me. I've always talked about them as like getting guidance from them, but knowing that they're me in other dimensions. Now, a dimension is different than a parallel life. So my parallel lives are happening along with this life, and I work in those dimensions, or they're not dimensions. I work in those timelines in my sleep time. But when I'm in ayahuasca, it's when I'm connecting to my other dimensional selves, which means that I have intuitively felt them as 12 different parts of me or fractals of me. So typically, once the ceremony is complete and there's no more agenda, and I say agenda because the Icaros are an agenda. It is a clear, even if you don't speak the language, because they're not in English, none of them, it is like a schedule. Like you're not getting away from working on your shit if you got shit to work on. So you can't really there's no blank space for you to start these conversations. So it isn't until the close of ceremony that then you can venture into your own experience. So this time for me is normally when I have these conversations with my other beings of myself. And it was the first time there was nothing. I know I'm deep in the medicine, but no one's talking to me. And it's not like I'm talking out loud and asking questions. How it works is that there'll be something that will pop into my mind. And then usually I just get like this full downloaded 360-degree interpretation of whatever it is that my mind came up with to work on. So what I heard is, no more questions. It's time to assimilate. And I was like, oh, I didn't even like consciously now. I kind of didn't even really understand the actual word, but I could feel what they were saying, and that it was no longer a space for me to do mind work. Like, me as a person has a ton of questions, has a ton of like, oh, what should I do for this? And how should I go forward in this? And let me tune into Richard. Let me see what's going on with my friend. Those are like past things that I've done. I'm going to say they, and hopefully this is the last time, because they went away and they embodied. And I knew the moment that I was told, no more questions, you have to assimilate, what it felt like is, this is going to sound sad, but it felt like losing my best friends in a way, because I've had them with me to talk to, really, if I'm like feeling into the last 3 years of my life, they're the ones that have brought me through this journey. And I've always felt like I've never been alone. Like I have never felt like this is a lonely journey, because I mean, there's so much around me and so much that's trying to move through this vessel, and I'm the one that's like slowing it down, you know? So in a way, like having them pull back, but they made it clear it wasn't that they were pulling back to leave me, but to come inside of me. And if I kept having these conversations or questions it's like a very fine line of losing your mind. So essentially it was, instead of it being you interpreting us as a download, you have to assimilate it through your body and feel what you want to know. So the mind has questions, the body just is. So I was, trying to understand that, and at the same time, like, okay, well, like I'm deep in, what do I need to feel into? And they kind of then brought up the music and said, that's why we showed you how to feel the music. It's a totally new way of working, and not like, I wouldn't say, how do I say this? It's not like I don't feel into things, because I definitely do. But we are conditioned to use our minds for everything. So even if I feel let's say in a session with someone, everything comes through by feeling. But when I'm by myself and I'm curious about something, or I'm asking questions, I'm talking, I'm tuning into and trying to discern what's coming through, but I don't always use my body. And they said that's the mind is not going to take you there. Like if you want, I remember, actually, I'm going to bring this up, because I did say, when they told me this, I said, I've made room. I'm ready. Because, I've been ready. I've been thinking I'm ready to fully embody. And when I said that, I could feel my personality kind of move to the left, and then it dropped in. And then I said, is this why? And again, here I'm talking in my head, but yeah, they wouldn't answer questions. So my question was, is this why you were having me eat so much kale? And they were like, feel it. And so I had to feel into what was that kale doing to this vessel. And it was aligning me frequency to, like a richer place of light for that part of me to feel like plant. Like it almost feels like planting down. And even with the Atlas adjustment, same thing. It was like, this isn't painful. It's not meant to be painful. And can you just feel into all of this? And so I just laid there on my mat, and I was like, okay, what am I? Like, let's go there. Like, I just opened up like I did to the music and just laid there and allowed the energy to move through me in a feeling way versus it from my mind, right? Like it's so strange, but it's such a different way of experiencing ayahuasca. Although I've always had both, completely taking away the mind is like, it's like learning how to walk again, or learning how to actually communicate in a way that's not telepathic, because even in telepathy, you're using your mind. This is not that. So as I felt into this embodiment, I felt like this deep dragon energy come through, and they showed me that, see, I'm doing it again. I was shown through myself that I'm embodying a fractal of a dragon. And that dragon, and I haven't researched this, so I don't know if this is real, but it felt like it was the carrying the codes of Archangel Gabriel in a dragon form. And that then snaked through this body and it stayed. So there was this embodiment of a dragon energy, and it felt like at times like totally overwhelming, and at the same time like home, because ultimately it was all of these 12 fractals of myself coming into this time space reality. And I didn't sleep that night, and I don't remember a lot. I feel like this is also the first time, because my mind wasn't active. It wasn't like normally in the past I would be asking questions and having dialogue and being like, okay, I have to remember this, because my mind would be so active, right? Like I would be present and conscious of what I was talking, thinking, hearing. This was not that. It was way more organic, and it was it's not a mind game anymore. It's not they said this and I was shown this and this is the advice I have for this part of my life. Gone. None of that. No one's talking to me anymore. So the next day in circle, I was explaining this to everyone, and kind of at the same time, although I've been ready and waiting for this to happen, there is a mourning, for sure, a mourning of a part of me that is now, it's now gone, gone in the way that I had known it. So then the second night, I didn't journey at all this time through the ceremony. I was sober 100%, like nothing, didn't feel anything, nothing. But I enjoyed the music and I enjoyed the experience, and I was loving every minute of it. But there was no journey during ceremony. The moment that everything was closed, I knew that I was in the medicine because I could see the energy, and because at least for me in ayahuasca, when I see energy in the room, it's very neon, and also the Icaros look like these twirling, swirling black and white geometric patterns. And I could see that clearly with my eyes, but I felt stone cold sober as I ever have. So I was like, okay, this is weird. This is different. Normally I feel kind of like underwater in a way, like my senses are super heightened and every sound is like incredibly vibrant. And only thing is that I could see the energy, but I couldn't feel, I couldn't hear it. I couldn't like taste it. It wasn't in my body. So then after everybody laid down and went to sleep, I knew, okay, I know I'm in the medicine. What are you guys showing me? And like right away, as soon as the light went out, I could feel my whole body lift out of this vessel, or like, I guess it would be my energy lift out of this vessel. And they started doing some surgery on me, and it wasn't my 12. It felt like separate from me. And I was like, what's going on? Like, tell me what you guys are doing. And nothing. I would get no responses. And finally I got frustrated, and I was like, fine, if you don't want me to be here consciously, I'm going to turn on my side and go to sleep. And for me, the moment that I try to sleep and go on my side, I start flowing into other people's energy. So, as I have always said, energies are threads that are moving through this time-space reality. Like they're like highways, but there's a zillion of them. So if I'm not focused and laying on my back, centered, and I turn to the side because I'm a side sleeper, I absorb what's going on over here, what's going on here, what's going on next door. I'm absorbing a zillion other things. And I mean, it goes so fast that it was like, whew, in 1 second, I went to my cousin's daughter, to the video games that she plays, to where those video games originate, to what is actually going on. And it like trickles down that deep in like a split second. And what will happen is when I hit that moment of where I'm so deep down that thread of my cousin's daughter's video game, I get a like like something in my whole head, my whole body vibrates, and it's like a flash of like, back up. We allowed it to go this far. You need to back up and wake up. So, and this has happened to me many times in ayahuasca, because I jump on threads of other people fairly like all the time. So I get this alarm. So I I lay back down on my back, and I said, okay, if you want me to like be present and awake, why aren't you talking to me? And they said, assimilate. Like you need to feel. And I was like, I can feel you doing work on my head. Like it felt like they were in my brain, but I don't understand. And they said, okay. And this is just through emotion that they explain this, but that a child is the one that asks questions. A child is the one that's so curious and wants to soak up everything. So it's like, well, what does that mean? What is this? What is that? Why is that purple? It's like this never-ending quest of questions. And if you were to talk to Richard, this is my personality. I love getting to the bottom of things. Like if I don't understand it and there's any kind of peak of interest for me, I'm going to ask a zillion questions. And normally that's around people and trying to really deeply understand someone. That's usually where I get deep in with people. But they said that's how a child is. That is how you understand and are conditioned to understand in this time-space reality. What we're saying is you're no longer a child. You have to assimilate. You have to feel into everything that you are now. It's not separate from you, and you're not going to get the answers through your mind space anymore, because the mind is not cosmic. It's nothing. And it's just like, it felt like the training wheels to the vastness of everything, right? And I was like, okay. So I tried. So then I went into the surgery. I was like, okay, let me feel into what's happening in my brain. And then I got really confused, because in that moment that I started to try to feel into what they were doing, I didn't know who I was anymore. And I felt like didn't know who this body was, and I didn't know who I was. The ego was gone. And I had to like sit with that confusion. And it was then this feeling of, look, we're in the middle of something and we're reorganizing it felt like I guess you would call them synapses between memories. And so you're going to be a little confused because we're changing them. And I was like, okay, again, why do I need to be conscious for that? But again, they said, the more that you, how's the word? Like the more you resist or try to sleep, the longer this is going to take. Just open, let it go through you. So that whole night was a lot of just allowing, when I say a surgery, so it's not like I saw these little beings come down and they're like cutting into this skin. It's energetic. So no, I didn't see anyone. I could just feel them changing things within my energy system. And it was mainly in my head. I'm saying so much because as you can tell, I'm still absorbing, and I don't even remember, like, of that entire night, the second night, I think I remember maybe 5% of what happened. And it's strange because I was awake the entire night, but I don't again, my mind wasn't involved, so I couldn't keep track of what all the steps and the things that were happening with me and to me. And it felt like a totally new experience for me with ayahuasca, but at the same time, it was completely perfect. It felt like I'm learning a new language and learning how to walk in this new body. I have talked about the desire to be fully embodied, knowing that it was coming and knowing that eventually I would get there. The last time I tuned into it a few months ago, I knew it was close. And now I feel like I'm gonna use something that I think we can all relate to, and that I've really been feeling deeply. All of the intuition and the nudges and the synchronicities and the random occurrences that happen in our lives are us. Like, it's literally us reminding ourselves that we are on track, or us training with a new vibration that keeps bringing it around and bringing it into your field because it is you. And what I know now after this experience is that instead of letting the mind question it and want to understand it and wanting to digest it, like consume it like a child would, it's the knowing and the embodying that knowing that brings that embodiment to this planet, to this time-space reality. The more that we try to absorb through our mind it's literally the ego trying to read a language that it really isn't able to fully embody. So if I look back at the last 3 years, I can see myself having moments of full, feeling into and embodying, but always that mind is questioning. Always that mind was looking for the answers, the explanation, the investigation, really getting to the bottom of what does this actually mean for me. And it's not that at all. It is literally the furthest thing from embodiment. I am, as you can see, at a loss for words because it's not in my mind anymore. It's something that is now moving through me, and my mind is secondary. I know that that's part of my journey, and that it is the part of me that is here to bring forward new ways of being, and new ways of embodying what we are. What I'm going to talk about in the episode next week is immediately after this ceremony, Richard and I went camping, and what unfolded in that trip is something that I can only describe as a miracle and perfect timing, perfect everything. And what I know now is that if I wasn't completely following that, knowing that gut feeling, that the embodiment of emotion, it wouldn't have happened because my mind would not have allowed it to, because that mind gets so tangled up in the experience that it stops everything from happening. You want free-flowing energy lines through you. You don't want that knotted, but I don't understand. No, they want you to flow with everything that comes, all the things that are difficult, all the things that are beautiful, all the things that are challenging, all of it. That's you showing yourself you. And can you look at it in wonderment and feel into all of the emotion that it stirs up within you? That to me feels like that's embodiment. That's saying, I understand I have a mind and I need a mind to navigate this experience in this life, but it isn't me. It's not at all me. Me exists on a plane that doesn't use the mind or words. And even I would say telepathic language or speaking that way is something of this planet. It's not, we don't need that. In spirit form, we feel into each other. We are each other. I think that, and this is maybe something I don't know, but I'm feeling right now, is that telepathic communication is something that we are going to evolve to in this planet for sure. It's like, but understanding that still is of this dimension. Maybe it's a higher form, maybe it's 4D or 5D, but it is of this planet. When we completely embody that light, it's not words. It's not a language that I know, it's literally learning a whole new way of understanding something much bigger than what was brought into this reality, but for some reason also wants to live and experience this reality. So I'm feeling like I'm trying to incorporate that part of me and embody it, and knowing that this is just the first step. Like, I don't know how this is going to unfold, and I'm so excited to see how it does. And I feel like the energy that's coursing through me now is just different. It feels like I'm not like the person prior to this particular ceremony questioned a lot of things, was afraid of a lot of things. And I know that here I am putting my heart out there, but like, I am terrified to be a teacher. I am terrified, like I had these emotions around like 2 steps forward, then 3 steps back. Like, like I'm not ready for that. So I go back into my hermit place. For some reason, I can see and feel that limiting belief system was all a creation of my own mind matrix that now I can see doesn't mean anything, like literally nothing. So, I'm really excited about this next journey, and I'm just like, whew. So I will talk to you guys next week and let you know what happened after this ceremony. I hope you all are doing well.